mainly excited because it's Friday, which means that tomorrow is my first day off. But I'll tell you a story that made this my day off. I had an entire day off. I'll tell the story as I'm apologizing to Senator Chris Duenas on the other side of the break. So uh, tonight we're going to talk about something that I wanted to talk about this morning, and it was my fault that we weren't able to, and not Senator Duenas's fault. He was ready to go. So I asked him, and he kindly obliged to, or not obliged, but he kindly accepted my offer to move this conversation to tonight. And it's mainly about the Guam Department of Education, but it's also about politics. Um, the um, Senator Chris Duenas, he is the chairman of the Legislative Budget Committee. The legislature is in the midst of um, uh, just this jump into this or this preparation for performance-based budgeting at the same time putting together the fiscal year 2027 budget. And there's been some controversy about that regarding the Guam Department of Education, ranging from a bunch of things, but it kind of starts with no one's certain what the numbers are over at GDOE. I mean, I'm sorry, no one who has anything to do with the numbers is certain of what GDOE's numbers are. And it looks like even GDOE is kind of uncertain about, at least management is uncertain about some stuff. So he's going to talk to us about their budget and, maybe a little bit of concern that there might be about the political maneuvering Judy Wampat has been doing regarding the six schools that she has announced that she wants to close, and all the opacity that's over there and just all the problems, right? Um, but I also want to talk to him about something that's a little, I mean, it involves a school for sure, but it's a little outside of the scandal is outside of GDOE, and it's more so the government of Guam as a whole. And that's this Simon Sanchez High School thing. And I want to hone in on an annual $16.3 million payment that the legislature authorized and seems to have been the focus of agreement and the good negotiations that happened, the secret negotiations that happened last summer. And then we're going to talk to Senator Chris Duenas about his thoughts on the first gubernatorial forum. We'll have that conversation on the other side of this commercial break. It's a short commercial break, so please do stick with us.
Imagine Guam led by proven and effective leaders. Leaders with a record of service and success in lifting our island and her people from challenges and hardships that continue to plague our families and neighborhoods. The leaders we choose this election will make the difference between harder times or a safe, prosperous, and peaceful Guam. Frank Blas Jr. has led Guam out of difficult times throughout his career as a police officer to his role as Guam's Homeland Security Advisor and as your Senator and Speaker. And now, as our Governor, he will once again lead the charge to clean up our streets, protect our families and businesses, put drug dealers away for a long time, and let the region know that Guam is open for business once again. No other candidate can protect our people like Frank Blas Jr. Vote Frank Blas Jr. for Governor and Dr. Mary Okada for Lieutenant Governor. Tested, trusted leaders.
Welcome back to the Troy Torres Show. It is now 7:37 p.m. on Friday, June 12, 2026. If I'm not mistaken, this is Philippine Independence Day. Good evening, Senator Chris Duenas. Is today Philippine Independence Day?
Yeah, actually, good evening, Troy, and to the Kandit listeners. I was at the flag raising this morning at the Reef Hotel.
Okay.
And I think that kind of is a culmination of several festivities they have had. And then I believe the ball is tomorrow night celebrating independence. So happy 128th Philippine Independence Day.
Wow, 120,
celebrations.
1898, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the
128th anniversary of Philippine independence. That's awesome.
Yeah, so it was definitely the Reef Hotel. I guess so our resolution presentation today indicated they began this particular flag raising in 2006 and have been doing it consistently. I believe there was a pause during the pandemic, but basically it's been going on for quite some time. And it really is a large affair. I mean, they bring out, first of all, the owners of the hotel or those that are in the leasehold sponsor it. And then, of course, all the various consul general and others, and it's a nice event, and it really brings out everybody, leaders in the community and a lot of folks from the from the Filipino community that are, business people, and also the folks who are active in things like Lions Club and everything. So you really kind of see all the who's who of the Filipino community that you normally see in different areas, from time to time. But it was a nice celebration, wonderful breakfast, some good speeches, and some dancing and celebration. So it was a nice morning.
What was your favorite food that you tried there this morning?
I'm not much of a breakfast eater. So, I kind of went with some of the noodles, some of the pancit, the tapa.
Okay.
Like I said, it was like a brunch, actually. It's a huge spread. They had everything, lumpia, all kinds of different things. But I kind of stuck around a few favorites with that. And so they got the thing that's like a meatloaf. I forget what they call it, but it's really nice with the egg in the middle. I like that one.
Empedido. I know
man.
how to make that.
That's one of my favorites. And they had a really good kind of like I guess in the Mexican way, the one with the tomato and onions, and so just really good seasonings, and it was a good breakfast and a good time.
I'm sure it was.
And the calamansi. The calamansi juice was top notch. They were serving, instead of walking around with water, they were filling up your glasses with calamansi, and it was wonderful.
That does sound like coffee and all that. Well, anyway, I would not have been able to go there, and I did not have a show this morning when you were supposed to, when I asked if you could do this interview. So thank you for doing the interview tonight. When I messaged you this morning that I was unable to have a show this morning, I need to apologize because it's because of something stupid that I did last night. So I'm naturally uptight, and I've been all wound up with work that I decided I was going to take a 1/10 of a little bit of a gummy just to relax last night and to have good sleep. And so I got this new thing over at the vape shop. I'm going to show the audience right now. I should have thought better, because the name of it says Torch and it says Hulk on it. I don't know, but it's I just needed to unwind from all my thoughts, all the working and stuff. And so I took a very small portion of this gummy, and I will never do this again. I will never take this gummy ever again, because I was out of it for all of today. Like, today was my day off. This is the first work thing I'm doing is talking to you right now.
Troy, I thought you were chasing the bug out of.
No, I don't know where that man. You just reminded me.
You must be getting
rid
of that bug from the other night. So,
all right, let's get to it, Senator. Sorry,
sure.
We've been uploading enough. So, let's talk about the DOE stuff first. Sir, have you gotten anywhere near to answers that make sense and that connect the financial dots over at GDOE since the last time that we talked? I know you sent a letter to Judy Wonpat asking for some clarity on spending. Any answers have come back?
Well, it was kind of an interesting email return from Judy Wonpat. So I forwarded that to you. She basically said, thank you for your letter. And then she listed everything I asked for. And then on the bottom said, Frank Leonguro and Franklin Cooper Nurse will get the answers for you. And don't believe all the hype you've been hearing out there about all this politics and machinations. And we'll make our presentation soon. Which kind of, nice to get a response, but which kind of also even brings a bigger question, Troy. I mean, we've been dealing with this for months now. If you remember when the budget was first passed, there was all that gnashing of teeth that, you need to change the appropriation and make sure it's more flexible than sports facilities. And there's always been this 26 million and 51 million, the $77 million that's available, that's in this lockbox because of the legislature and all this back and forth. And so finally, okay, we unlock the lockbox and say, fine, here we go. And then, 26 million disappears. And I was like, well, what happened there? And so, even that for the last several weeks to basically just about a month really since that came out. And then, you would think that's something they could rectify within a day or a couple of days. And I'm really surprised it's taken this long. So I look forward to finally getting the update, because you're right. It is going to have a big impact on what the budget's going to look like, because, their idea here is to exhaust current debts that they have and also get, some CIP projects completed. to include, from what I understood, would be FB and Leon Guerrero and some others, major projects. And that would be a big problem if that money, for some reason, has been spent and they don't even know what it was spent on. And, that changes the picture quite a bit.
I know this is jumping ahead to certain conclusions, right? But I get the sense, like I have I'll call it a conspiracy theory, right? And it's simply my speculation because of who is involved here, what type of year this is, being an election year, and the willingness to maneuver politically in order to sort of manipulate, if you will, the legislature into doing things, right? Just all the politics that are swirling. That I have this conspiracy theory that that a lot of this money is being requested in order to hire political cronies or hire people in order to settle, previous transactions or whatever political debts that there might be. It's just, you place a politician at the head of the Guam Department of Education, the largest agency with the largest budget, and that politician came from Adelup. That was her, like she was the education person under Governor Leon Guerrero. It's an election year where Governor Leon Guerrero's essentially seeking a third term through Josh Tenorio proxy, right? I cannot help but wonder whether you guys are being asked for all this money, and you're going to be told some generalized purposes, and if you guys don't put in some stringent controls, they'll use a lot of that money for hiring of unnecessary people and positions.
Well, it's interesting, Troy, that, so going back once again to our pre-budget meeting and the budget meeting, and then the hearing that we had, and even really when they first came in, like I said, I was very impressed, particularly on the finance side. In fact, in the SES meeting yesterday, they're looking really good for the 25 audit to come out, in November, because GDOE was on the spot and got their trial balance out, and the auditors are saying, okay, we might be able to get going and finish that by November, which would be great for the people of Guam to see that picture as well going forward. But all of this happening, and it was so tight from the beginning, right? And then all of a sudden we get to the budget season, and then you're right. For some reason, we're getting close to that, high intense political time. And then with all this fiscal stewardship and everything else, like I'm paying the bills, everybody's doing what they need to do. And then all of a sudden there's this dearth of information for weeks on something that, it seemed like, just going into the system, finding out what's there and saying, okay, here it is. And that's why I said I want a detailed accounting. I don't just want, there can be only two things. And even like I said, when I talked to a couple of board members, there can only be two things. One is it's an entry thing to where you're just, you're kind of, it's kind of a something when you switch from fiscal 2025 to 2026, how those funds, carry over into the new fiscal year. So it could be that, or it could be exactly what we're talking about. Because how did I sit in front of Judy Wampat and the fiscal people and everything else, and they said, hey, we need to pay bills. You need to really hurry up and get this bill passed that gives us more authority, right? And I mean, they're sitting there saying the cash is in the bank, the cash is in the bank. How does that change? Basically within like 6 weeks. Mm-hmm. So that's why it's very important to follow this one. This is not conspiracies or anything else. I mean, the one thing that doesn't change is dollars and cents, right? I mean, when you have accounts, that's why accounting is really such a science. I mean, that's not subject to, interpretation. That's hard numbers. It's either there or it's not. And if it's not, why? So I can agree that there's definitely there's a change in terms of how that approach is happening. And then the other thing is really just it can't be a coincidence with regard to that information coming out immediately about the shutting down of the schools. So it really, those of us who've watched kind of how things get orchestrated from time to time, it's really, if it's not, boy, if they can't see the appearance of it, then something's wrong, because on it, for anybody that normally watches how environments are created, all the elements are there.
Yeah, I agree. Senator, on Facebook, we have Mark Anthony saying, "Hoy, happy Friday, everyone." Lonnie Salas saying, "Good evening." Irene Alcantara saying, "Hi, everyone. Have a great evening." So is Millie Indolatio. Anna Marie Pangilinan is she's making fun of the gummy thing. My gummy story. She says, "Yummy, eh?" David Herrera says, "Kudos, Kandit. Enjoy life and unwind. You deserve a treat." I know, Uncle Dave. I'm not going to be getting any more of those treats. I cannot handle it. I'm naturally uptight, and so like even if you even whatever medicine you give to relax me is not going to work because the natural uptightness in me, the need to get wound up just continues on even if I'm trying to relax. Bennett Lujan Duenas says, "Good evening, Senator Duenas." David Herrera says, "They are Adelup DOE politicians all carved out from the same tree with termites and deceivers." And Johnny Rosario is saying that she's loving this bottle of torch that she got for me because I was very funny from last night until this afternoon. I was a funny case. I looked funny. So, did you want to say hi to everybody? And that's just on Facebook. On Instagram, I think there are some comments too. I just don't have the on the YouTube live stream. John Deloso says Hafaday, and David Herrera says Biba Betness. Thank you, Team Kandit, for an exciting week. Enjoy your weekend. Gwinaidza pari Kandit minagahit. Love for shining the light for the Kandit or light on truth. Good evening, Uncle Dave. Good evening to everybody. Senator, the reason I ask you about fiscal controls on any appropriation that you give to GDOE, all things considered, right, is also because this is not going to be the first time that the executive branch will try to get one over you guys. It looks like in our examination of records in the Cortec procurement involving Simon Sanchez High School development, it appears, at least from the 5 of 6 recordings and from our review of other records in that procurement, that there was an immediate agreement by government of Guam and Cortec to pay Cortec $16.3 million annually for 30 years, which equals $489 million. And that number, 16.3 million, comes from the cap that the legislature authorized in the Makahat Act in the 37th or the 36th Guam legislature?
The 37th.
In the 37th Guam
yes,
legislature.
yes.
That was former Senator Roy Kenyatta's bill. There were some of you who were warning certain things about, the amount of money, whether Adeloop's going to be honest with everyone, whether this was going to be protested. There were even some prophecies from you guys about that. Anyway, so you have this situation where both the government negotiating team and Cortec had already accepted the cap that the taxpayers are going to pay $16.3 million, the maximum on this thing. There was no negotiation on the government side to negotiate that down. The only negotiations, according to those recordings, was to negotiate away classrooms and buildings from the design in order to meet Cortec's whatever that price was, and whatever was going to satiate them at the $16.3 million. We also heard the planning or conspiracy, whatever you want to call it, between the government and Cortec in order to get the legislature to appropriate an additional $16.3 million in fiscal year 26 and fiscal year 27. My question, Senator, is when you guys passed the fiscal year 26 budget, did you and your colleagues know that it was for an additional $16.3 million?
That is a solid no, Troy. In the whole time that we were talking with Lester and others from the fiscal team, in fact, you remember that became a point of contention, saying that Simon Sanchez wasn't funded because of the way I did it. And so the way I did it, because we were contemplating the 0.5 reduction in the BPT, is I said, look, I'm going to give the governor her entire budget that she's asking for, and I'm going to give a lot of transfer authority. This is how uncertain I was, Troy. I actually started out by putting the 16.3 million in the miscellaneous provisions. It's not even in the education chapter, and it was authorized, not appropriated. Because I wanted to see, the actual, hey, we're done. There's an award. Remember now, people that are listening, our candid listeners, we are still in pre-award where this protest exists. There's not all that discussion was a negotiation. There's still no award. They weren't awarded this contract. That's how leery I was. So that was the fight over the BPT. Oh, you don't want to fund Simon Sanchez. And I said, okay. In the middle of all that, we came up and said, listen, we know it's unaudited, but we've got a lot of fund balances from, and believe me, I've confirmed it today too in our first draft meeting of the revenues. There's plenty of revenue for that in the fiscal year 24, 20, and 25, actually excess revenue, now audited 24, and looks even, there's more money in 25, but it's not audited. So the bottom line is that I was so leery. I said, oh, that's fine. Okay, I'm not going to do it in fiscal year 2026. I'm going to go to that funding source so that I don't affect my budget, right, in terms of changing my numbers. I'm not going to increase my revenue. That's how leery I was. Now, in all the discussions, and they finally accepted that as an appropriation. And then there was discussion of, well, and you got to understand there may be some pre-construction costs. Never were those construction costs discussed as not being part of the overall appropriation that the McCarthy Act calls for.
You're talking about the 30 years,
because Troy,
the 30-year lease back
period. Right, the 30, all of the terms. I call it, the three terms that are the most important are the interest rate cannot go past 8.5. The par amount is 166 whatever and change, right? Yeah. And the debt service is 16.3 something, right? Those three are hard and fast. They can't move, full stop.
Yeah.
So the reality is that if this was going to be money in addition to what was contemplated, that would have had to have been known, because that's an appropriation in addition to. So none of that was ever disclosed, Troy. So I'm once again, I'm going to let the people of Guam know. And as I answered your questions, my full understanding was they were going to be ready for prime time in this fiscal year to go to market. And they could not have, be genuine going to market without an actual appropriation to say, if we're sitting here and negotiating for this school and we are in California and end up in New York, and this, project is sold, we can tell you right now we have the first year of debt service and whatever ancillary associated, but in no way, shape, or form did.
So they made you guys assume that would be like first year of debt service. What did they tell you then about capitalized interest? Because according to their negotiations and documents that we've reviewed, the 166 includes the capitalized interest, which would have been the first 2 years payment.
And that's the point. I mean, that's traditionally the way whenever they're going to market. Once you have an appropriation, I mean, that starts servicing the entire agreement.
Yeah.
I mean, that you cannot follow the law, Troy. You know this, and this is very clear. And that's why I think Lester was so adamant in the last 10 minutes of meeting 6, where he said, this is what you got, take it or leave it, or come back with a negotiated deal, because he said this is what the law says. So you cannot have asked us for an appropriation that contemplates anything outside of what the law says, because you would have to amend the law to do that. You remember there was a lot of discussion in that negotiation too, saying, hey, if you're going to go outside of all the conditions here, you got to amend the law.
Yes. And so that was
Remember that there was a lot of caution in that whole discussion. Like, hey, let's bring it back to the table here. That everything we're going to do has to be done within the law. We cannot be changing the terms of the law.
Senator, we have Sonia Villagomez again saying have a blessed weekend. Juan Hokug says Biba Senator Duenas. Mac Michelle Gracelyn Sokal says good evening. Kelly Rodriguez asks, so did they approve the reduction of the school plans, or is the original proposal still in place? Okay, so Kelly, there's something very interesting about the design itself. So the government procured the design back in, I think it was 2022 or something like that. It was a while ago, and the legislature appropriated that money and also authorized for there to be a construction manager, which is a separate thing. So the designer, TRMA, Taniguchi Ruth Macchio Architects, they designed a school that at the time would have cost 166 point something million dollars. But with the passage of time and the estimated increases in construction costs, the legislature, through the Makahat Act, allowed for not the legislature. The legislature authorized a negotiating team or an evaluation team to set whatever type of procurement it is, whether it's an IFB, multi-step bid, or an RFP. And once they decide what type it is, they can decide how to address the procurement or how to do the procurement. This evaluating team decided that it was going to be a design, build, it's an entire thing. So they included design, even though there was a design, they included design as part of the RFP, so that the bidders could, or the offerers could, propose a price and a school that meets the guidelines of the original design, but is designed down because of the increased construction costs. Does that make sense to everybody? So whoever, it's kind of difficult to say what the school would look like because each of the offerers got a chance to make their own design, but they had to follow the TRMA design. This was not exact. This is kind of a vague thing, which is part of the problem of this whole thing. But it was how to get around the increase in the construction costs. But what Cortec was doing throughout the negotiations, and the negotiating team was whittling away at the sizes of classrooms, the classrooms in different areas, entire buildings, in order to achieve a certain price threshold. But it was always the 16.3 million, Senator. And after you listen to that, what I'm wondering is, in understanding that the executive branch has its role, the legislature has its role, right? But as you were exercising your guys' role in setting the cap, the $16.3 million, what type of expectation did you have of how the administration was going to handle something like that, especially in something like a negotiation? You had to have had some type of expectation, considering that you set a cap, not a firm price, but a cap at 16.3 million annual.
Yeah, I mean, I like, just also for our listeners, and thank you for being on tonight, and thank you for the compliments and comments. The thing is that let's go back once again, right? This procurement, and one of the reasons why Simon Sanchez has kind of been bounced around and the project's been bounced around is, before this particular law, it was actually with education, because we thought, well, maybe education can do this, right? And so that failed through protest. That was about 6-7 years ago. And so we're here now with this particular negotiation. And of course, Troy, our expectation was, the faith was, put it back at DPW. They are that's their job. That's what they do for the government. They build roads, or they contract for roads, they do their own road maintenance. They act, that's what they do, right? Public Works is designed to make sure that these projects can go forward for the government. And so, of course, we anticipated that, they would put out the bid and negotiate with offerers, and, whatever that would be. If they could get a better deal for the government, that's fine. But, we already knew by setting the 16.3, and like you're doing when you show that amortization over, the 30 years, it's normal, like a house, right? You're going to have that huge number, but for the end of the road having $500 million, I mean, you would think that, they would do whatever they, might do internally to see if they could bring that down or not. But at least they had a cap and something reasonable that we believed could be accomplished. But yeah, my expectation was they were going to take the offers and negotiating and get the best responder and the best deal for the people of Guam and to build that school.
Senator, there is it seems like you're surrounded by people who you're supposed to trust, or you would like to trust. You would like to have relationships where you're able to take them at face value and maybe verify things a little bit later, right? But it sounds like you're surrounded by people in the administration who you have to wonder what it is, whether what it is they're saying is honest or if there's something being omitted. Like in the case of, I mean, if you believe what several different sources within GDOE, and I'm sure you're getting those phone calls and emails yourself from people who are scared to go public with anything, but you're probably yourself getting information from within GDOE about the situation going on over there and the alleged conspiracy by the superintendent to regarding the schools in order to pressure you guys, the political maneuvering, right? And then you take what has been revealed in this whole Simon Sanchez thing and how these people who you guys trusted with all this authority through the Makahat Act, they have not been very honest with you guys. Senator, how are you going to navigate a new budget, understanding that some of these people have not been honest with you, perhaps?
Well, let's start from the beginning. And I had this conversation with the Office of Finance and Budget folks. So we don't want to stop any progress, but we will not have a new appropriation in 2027 for the school. We will carry forward the current appropriation. So that will dispel anything about any speculation that we were going to do an appropriation in 26 and 27, basically creating an environment to where we have, an additional $30+ million. So we're going to make sure if there is a resolution to this particular issue, or if there's a negotiation with another offerer, that the money will still be there going into 2027. It will be the same funding source. We will carry it forward with language, which means the people of Guam, we're still trying to build that Simon Sanchez, and it's going to be funded, but it's not going to be an additional 16.3. It's going to be the same, appropriation going forward. So thank God this is one instance, of course, where I think at least the law is proving to be durable, Troy. There's no way around it, and everybody knows that to follow the law, you have to stay within those, the four corners of the agreement and the law itself, but even those three parameters, right? Yeah. So at least the law protects us, and so all we got to do is allow the procurement situation to settle itself with the OPA and allow those offerers to figure out, who is responsible offerer and what's going to end up. So I just go back to the fact that I can trust that system. The law is proving to be strong. I think it's really out there now because of all your coverage that everybody's watching this. I don't think anybody's going to try to have a misstep whatsoever on this procurement. So that, the investigative stuff you've done, the media part is doing its job. The law is durable. So that's the one thing I can be for Simon Sanchez. I can be assured that I'm going to put that appropriation in, but it's not additional. It's the current amount from the current funding source. The second thing is, listen, we're going to have that oversight hearing, and I'm expecting some, on the record, under oath, real talk from the superintendent and all the deputies. And once again, because you've done your job, there's going to be a lot of attention on this. First of all, whether or not those schools are actually slated to be closed. And I have a feeling they're not going to be. So we should resolve that. And I think the other part is also that, if we are able to, basically give you a budget that's above the 266, but definitely, I think the 304 is not going to be workable, especially under these conditions where we're so unsure now of how resources are being managed. then we're going to have a funding source that's going to be adequate for education, but we're going to look into having a lot more detail. And once again, I wanted to say to our listeners too, and I've been saying this, I'm going to say this through the budget process. We're passing a budget that a new governor and a new legislature are going to be responsible for. And I think it's really important right now that we pass a budget that's adequate, that can run the operations of the government, but that a new governor and a new legislature going into the second quarter and finishing the fiscal year, put their vision in there. Because I think that a new governor and a new legislature as well are going to realize that the people are unhappy with the way things are going, and there's going to have to be a lot more transparency, a lot more discussions and fruitful discussions between the legislature and the new governor to really get progress moving forward. So I think the people of Guam are going to be okay with me passing and our body passing basically pretty much a status quo budget, so that there's no room for abuse, in October to have any money moving for no reason, because there's this huge appropriation authority going forward. And I think that's where the check and balance will be, that whatever is able to happen in the balance of this, term happens. And then when the first quarter starts of the fiscal year, that we're really tight with the funds, so that so there's really no maneuverability, and let the new administration and the new governor figure out if they need to do supplemental budgets going forward. I think that's the best safeguard that I can put in right now, and that's my thought process at this point.
Well, thank you for that segue into the third part of this conversation. When you talk about the new governor, whoever that new governor is going to be, what are your thoughts? Your general reaction to yesterday's gubernatorial forum by the Guam Women's Chamber of Commerce?
Well, from what I could catch of it, I was in and out because I was really busy in the morning, but I was able to catch up and watch most of it again, of what you were able to put out. I concur with your assessment actually overall, and I concur with the fact that I think there was a huge missed opportunity, for that particular organization, the Women's Chamber, to really hit on the two issues you talked about: corruption, and basically, even if you're just talking about, the situation where the allegations and the misuse of funds, and also just the general lack of confidence in the fact that we've accomplished a lot in this last 8 years, I was really taken aback that wasn't in the forefront. And then also, of course, with the recent GBB scandal, I was taken aback really that wasn't a key question in terms of, even if you're not going into the allegation itself, I mean, in terms of the knowing that at this point, it is an allegation and it's taking itself through the process, but just through the reaction, as governor, what would be your immediate reaction on how you would handle this situation? And your response, knowing that there seems to be a lot of information supporting the fact that at least this individual and maybe others, have been harmed, and I think that would have separated people. You know what I mean? I don't know if you agree with that, but I think
it was very. I agree with you. I think it's very weird that it wasn't brought up.
Yeah, and just given the fact that I know that with the Guam Women's Chamber, they're very, they're very hawkish, if you will, on the issue of abortion and women's health care kind of thing. That's I think that's a key pillar, right? But and on that issue, I agree with you on your assessment too. I think there was a lot of care given by those responders, which I thought was really thoughtful and nice. That we can have our differences on this issue, but I believe that women who are in a difficult position, particularly with an unwanted pregnancy or maybe children, who they can't take care of, that's where the focus has got to be, because really it's about the children and the families and vulnerable women. I thought that a lot of them handled themselves really well with that too, because we can get very divisive on the fundamental issue. Where I am, but the thing is that really, what are you really talking about, right? You're talking about the care of people. You're talking about vulnerable women in difficult situations. You're talking about, if you are trying to get on, someone who is with child to try to have a future for that child, even though they can't care, how do we have a program that says, that person feels comfortable about taking that child to term and perhaps giving it up to a wanting and loving family. So I thought that those questions were managed real well. I agree with your assessment. I mean, it was clear that some of the teams were sharp and ready and prepared, and then the foray of newer people coming in. It's a weird thing. You can do debate prep, but when you're actually sitting there, I think the last thing, Troy, is 5 teams. That's difficult. You know what I mean? I don't know whether they didn't want to do a partisan thing to where they did a Republican one and a Democrat one, but that the timing and the 5 teams, I thought that was also a challenge.
The I thought that each team had their strength, right? And each team also had their weakness. It clearly, I think, to me, like, just looking at it as objectively as possible, right? Um, it really seemed like Tony Addett and EJ Calvo both came highly prepared. They came to work that day, is what I would say, right?
I
Frank
agree.
Frank Blas had, out of all the answers on reproductive health, I think surprisingly, Frank Blas had the best answer. Um, I thought that Therese Terlahi, Sabina Perez, and Josh Tenorio all showed like mastery, command of the issues. But I thought, I think it was pretty clear, like the person who had like complete mastery of issues, just new issues, like, and details and all that, was Sabina Perez. Um, and then the most charming out of all of them, because let's face it, there was not that much charm on that stage last night.
Yeah.
They were, yesterday morning. I don't know if they was just ever they were just waking up, or everyone left their personality outside the door or something. But Dwayne St. Nicholas stood out as highly relatable and charming, I thought.
On those issues, particularly there's no question about it. Sabina Perez is very meticulous, and you see that in the way she argues her points on the floor. We have several disagreements, but I will agree that she's very meticulous and she does a lot of research, and so she definitely that's a strength for sure. With Dwayne, I want to tell you, man, that I'm serving a term with that guy. That's who he is. Everybody who saw Dwayne, that's who that guy is. He's a fun guy to be around. He genuinely loves people. He's a happy guy, and I'll tell you, it's really interesting because him running for lieutenant governor, the most uncomfortable thing he ever had, really, a lot of times, and you saw it in some of his arguments. I'm sure you watched sometimes when he would speak. He takes a lot for him to get riled up, but what he gets riled up about sometimes is when it gets uncomfortable and things seem personal, and because he's just genuinely a nice guy and he doesn't like it when people pick on people. And so when he talks, the spam, the rice, this is who I am. That's who Dwayne is. And he's actually a very delightful person to be around.
Yeah, I think that's a great word from delightful. Yeah. um, the what was I gonna say? Gosh, I forgot what I was gonna say. It had to do with
Well,
the
one thing I want to
date.
one thing I want to say, Troy, while you're thinking through that,
I remember now. Go ahead.
what jumped out at me was there's a lot of change on that stage.
Yeah.
So if people that are looking for change, they've got a great selection.
Well, let's talk about that, right? Because here's something else that, except for that abortion question where Tony Ada and EJ Calvo differentiated themselves from everyone else, right? Everyone else had the same general answer about reproductive health rights. It was just the contrast was against it was Tony Ada and EJ Calvo. They had a different answer, right? Aside from that, everybody else's answers were kind of the same, like their solutions for the economy, for the drug issue, and how that melds in with mental health issues, education issues. They had the same solutions. What I thought was interesting, and you saw Therese Terlahi do this probably most effectively out of anyone, was called to everyone's attention that there is a candidate on the stage who has been in office for the past 8 years. Now, Therese Terlahi didn't say his name directly and didn't point at him or didn't even point at the administration, but whenever she would talk about issues, and she would make it relatable at times to people's everyday struggle, right? But she would also relate it to the problems that we've been having the past several years. And, of course, your mind goes to the current administration, and on that stage is the current administration. Josh Tenorio basically running for a third term of Lou and Josh, right? And I'm maybe what was a little boring, I thought, was that there weren't more candidates on the stage willing to point that out, because you're talking about change, right? Why wouldn't they? Why do you think Senator Tony Ada and Frank Blas, they're your colleagues on the Republican side, or even their running mates, right? Because sometimes it's the lieutenant governor candidate's duty to do to be the bad cop, right? Why didn't they call out the administration more?
Well, I see. The thing is, when I say change, maybe what I'm speaking to more than anything else, and I think this has been the problem that has existed. I don't think there's a lack of. I think you're going to get a lot of agreement on this. It's the approach. I think the approach because there is a lot of similarity to the answers. I mean, a lot of the solutions really are based in policy, based in how we use the resources that we have, and based on how we court investment and more economic activity to go on, right? I mean, it's really, you're going to get that. So I what I saw, to me, when I say change, is the approach. I see a lot of more inclusiveness with other teams. I see a lot of working with others, more closer, and so I don't, and that's why I don't know when if I was an incumbent and even a lieutenant at this point, as part of. And, it's kind of what happened to Kamala, right? What are you going to do different? Well, I can't think of anything. But I think the contrast really, to me, is how do you work with others? How do you get things done? And I can tell you there's a lot of different approaches up there that are very welcoming. So that's really what I think. The issue of kind of going at it at this point with 5 teams and kind of not carving it out at this point, I think that's why, because that setup wasn't really that inviting to that kind of thing. I think you're going to see probably more messaging coming out in the next few weeks that'll do that. But on a panel with 5 teams on there, I think that's kind of hard. That's got to be more of a one-on-one or a debate within the partisan side, right? So I mean, if you just had the 3 teams up there, and even the 2 teams, you'd see a little bit more sparks. And then also there would probably be more towards, gunning at the air, the one who's trying to take the office as a lieutenant governor to become governor, because they have to create that contrast. I just think the setup didn't set up for it. That's just my opinion.
Interesting. All right. So, okay, I remember what I wanted to ask. The issue of corruption. I thought it did not come up at all until I was sent by the Terlahi campaign. I was sent the 2 minutes that the live stream from Guam Women's Chamber of Commerce cut out was the 2 minutes that Therese Terlahi and Sabina Perez gave their opening statement, right? But before I saw that video, which was hours after, I was really disappointed because I didn't hear anyone talk about corruption. And then, come to find out that Therese Terlahi did talk about it during her opening statement. It was a very strong statement too about not being, for special interests and all this stuff, right? But do you share my disappointment? And if not, why? That the issue was not litigated during the forum at all.
Well,
aside from that statement from Therese Terlahi.
The thing is, an opening statement and then answering a question, because, this and doing this for a while too, the answer you give to a question is the answer that you want to give, regardless of the question that's asked, right?
Regardless of the question. It's the message that you want to convey, yeah.
Right. But the thing is that, in that situation where that captive audience has, is an issues based, and they're asking the questions, you're trying your best to stay within the parameters. That really, to me, was an incumbent on the organization.
To
I
ask the
think on the
question.
next, yeah, I think on the next, upcoming and whatever else is coming up. I mean, that's really where the charge is at, because I mean, you could come out with it. You know what I mean? It just, like I said, I think they're trying to answer the question to, this is my plan. This is what I want to do. This is why I'll be a better governor. This is why my running mate, will be better as a partner to see us through, these questions you're asking about why we're going to accomplish this and why we're going to do it better than those that are next to us. And I think that contrast, I think, is kind of, it has to be brought out of that kind of arrangement, that kind of a setup there. But I think that will definitely, play regardless in the future debates and the future, depending on how the primary shakes out.
Senator, what do you?
But I think it was,
no, go ahead.
I think it'll still be no matter what, I mean, whether or not you're facing the incumbent or not. I think that issue has to be prosecuted, and any campaign that doesn't go after that is going to be missing a huge opportunity. And I think that will leave people wanting.
I agree. I think it's an issue that needs to be brought out by the campaigns. And yeah, you're right. It's the people asking the questions, right? It should have been a question. It's just such a top of mind sort of thing. I'm curious, Senator, what do you think the candidates on both sides, on the Democrat side and on the Republican side, need to do in order to win the election on August 1st? You can be as general or specific as you'd like. I'm curious. Please be as specific as you would want to be.
I know they all have their game plans, but I think that, to me, the fundamentals of what they've got to put, compel the people to believe and understand in them is first of all that they have Guam's best interests at heart. You know what I mean? Their campaign has to speak to why the issues they're concentrating on and what their platform is built on is really changing the direction we're going in right now, and bringing about, real, effective, meaningful change to our people that makes our government work for them. And really, in doing that, they're going to have to really explain as much detail as possible about why their plan is better. Like you said, I think that they have to take the position that, your government hasn't been honest with you. Your government hasn't been transparent, with you, and that that really is an impediment to moving us forward. And then I think really, I think also a real balance of understanding that government and the private sector have to work in unison moving forward. I think there's been a very contentious relationship, and I'm not saying, the Chamber of Commerce too, at times, you know what I mean? They have their mission, and they have their thought process, and business has been difficult because of the pandemic and all the world events and everything else. But I think no matter what, it's been contentious in terms of how the approach is to really bringing our island together, and focusing more on what government needs to do, and how our private sector also, needs the assistance that they need from government operating better, more efficient. And I think that pretty much, you got to have that feeling of command. This team is going to have command, and also they're going to, they're going to actually execute on a plan that's going to turn this island around quicker than the way things are going right now. That's my general thought.
Were there any clear winners to you from yesterday morning's forum? Or if not winners, then, like, what superlative would you give to any of them who stood out to you?
I think some of them had a better start and set a better foundation. And so I think I think it's right now it's build, right? And if you thought you might have, not had enough substance, and you need to ramp it up, well, it's a short period of time. So, they're going to have to get out there and be everywhere that they can be in any opportunity to speak to people. And, they're going to have to spend money. There's no question about that, getting their message out. But I think it was clear to me without really going into, it's not fair for me because I am a Republican and I have some of my favorites.
I'm not going to ask you who.
yeah, but I think you could kind of surmise the fact that there was clearly a couple teams there that demonstrated that they're ready, they're prepared, they're organized, and that they have their plan put together. And I would say that anyone who didn't, needs to kind of brush that up and get it out quick.
I agree with that assessment. What's going on with your campaign? Is it hard for not just you, but for all candidates to raise money in this economy?
Yeah, Troy, I'm not one. I haven't really. I think my last term, my last run, I raised somewhere around $40,000, and that's really not a lot of money for a senatorial campaign. But so I don't really generally raise a lot of money anyways, but it is tough. I know that with this many gubernatorial teams, that definitely takes a lot of resources out of those who are contributing to campaigns. I think right now, because people are hungry, with social media and everything else, if candidates that are new, want to kind of get their message out or do things different, they just got to be more creative. But yeah, it's a tough environment. And whether you're asking the business community or whether even when you're doing small fundraisers, I feel guilty about it, even doing a 20, because it's hard. I know it's really hard out there for people. So yeah, it's a tough environment to raise money. So I think candidates, especially since on the senatorial side, both sides have, a full slate plus, going to have to be more creative in getting your message out.
Are you and other candidates waving already? Are you doing the early morning waving?
There has been waving. I haven't been able to do it. I kind of got a situation where mornings are a little tough for me, but I hope we'll do some afternoon ones. But yeah, there's waving going on, group waving. The Republicans have been doing it. I'll get to as many of them as I can, but that's definitely, I think, generating some energy on our side, and that's been happening.
Do you guys, how do you guys feel about retaining or even building your majority, especially considering there are some, household Democrat names who are coming back to run, like Clint Rigel, Amanda Shelton, Roy Kanata? How are you guys feeling about the majority considering these Democrats coming in?
I think that this majority, of course, the people of Guam are hungry for so much more, and there's a lot to do. I think we've been efficient as a legislature. I think we're getting, a lot done. Like I said, we've listened to the fact that we've got to balance government spending with making sure the private sector is strong going forward. And I think everyone within their respective areas of committees have done well with the work that they've done. The hospitals, turning the corner, and we're really dogged on education right now, public safety, as far as, the cycles are fully funded. You're seeing a lot more firemen, a lot more, police officers. You're seeing, customs is now turning the corner as well with, a couple of laws that we passed. So, in all the key areas, I feel like we've definitely made a difference. So I feel very comfortable with the incumbents that they're working hard, and we're going to finish strong with this budget proposal that's going to be adequate and still good to run our government, but also making sure that we're building in efficiencies to our government. So I'm happy with the positioning of those who currently have the committees we have. Particularly, we've created investment opportunities that we've done at the airport. So with our port's done some great work because of legislation that we put in that allows for investment there, where Black Construction's putting in warehousing, building a new road for our people out while they're doing the breakwater, with no capital outlay. So we've done a lot of good stuff, and I'm confident that the committees and those incumbents have done well. And then the new ones are really exciting as well. We have Dr. Wen running. So, in terms of what he brings to the table, and all the other individuals, a lot of exciting opportunities. Like I said, if they get their message out, I feel very comfortable with the fact that we're going to put up a great defense of the majority, and I look forward to our new folks coming in and retaining the majority.
Senator, whether the next governor wants to build a hospital at Manilao or at Ipao Point or in Tizen, I don't know. Are, are you willing to commit to working with whoever is the next governor to finally build a new Guam Memorial Hospital?
Absolutely, we have to. It's unfortunate that we hit, this roadblock, if you will, and it got to be where it is right now. There's no question. I think, and I think I've said this to you before, Troy. This question of a hospital or a complex, we need a hospital. I know that a complex is a great aspiration. It's a great dream. It's something that is well known throughout the U.S. and even in Asia in terms of having a lot of specialties and ancillary capabilities. We need it, no question about it. But that's something that's got to be built based on the region and based on the ability to have the patient load and everything else to carry it. I just hope that the focus goes forward with the new governor and the new legislature. Let's start with what we actually need, and that's a hospital, a new hospital, because we have great nurses. We have, doctors that are, doing good work over there, saving lives every day. I'm hearing all the time, GRMC's full. That we have a difficult time with our population. We have to face the fact that we do have a population that's not well. And so people are constantly using that facility, and GMH, believe me, even with all of the, the negative, publicity really and things. I mean, they're doing miracles over there and they're saving lives. They need a facility that works to save lives, stabilize people, and then get them to specialty care, whether it's on island or off island. So I just hope that's the focus. And to me, wherever it ends up being, as long as the discussion is a hospital for now, and let's get to it. And that's my commitment.
Well, Senator, you spent an hour on the phone with us. I want to thank you so much. Is there anything you want to add to this conversation?
Oh man, Troy, it's been a great time with you, and not really. Just I hope everybody has a wonderful and blessed weekend, and also that we need to continue to be available to speak to the people about our plans going forward and what we want to do and how we want to make sure that, like you said, I mean that's got to be top of the line to make sure we get that hospital done but going into this weekend, I just want everybody to be safe, enjoy themselves and relax, and then let's hit it next week again. But thank you for this opportunity, Troy.
Yeah, happy Philippine Independence Day.
Absolutely. God bless you, my friend.
God bless you. God bless you. Bye.
Take care.
You too. That was Senator Chris Duenas joining us for the past hour about a whole bunch of different things, from the financial issues and the political maneuvering over at Guam Department of Education, to his thoughts on the evolution of financing and what the legislature was told versus what was actually going on behind closed doors regarding Simon Sanchez High School development and the Cortec procurement. His thoughts on the gubernatorial forum and on politics in general it was a great conversation for the past hour. Now, I'm supposed to be taking the day off tomorrow. However, I had almost all of today off. It was unexpected, but also there is a high possibility that tomorrow we will be having an interview with, no, it's not a high possibility. We are interviewing Landon Idlet with the National Weather Service. And let me not say what that is right now, because I don't know, things could change between now and tomorrow morning, but something that's brewing that Landon thought enough that Landon thought that the growing modeling on it was enough that we could say something publicly tomorrow, but not as early as tonight. So at around 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, we will have a Saturday news analysis. I do have some stories to write as well that I was supposed to write today, and I just don't ever take this if you'd like to function. Yeah, so I guess I don't have a day off this week. You guys all have a beautiful night. God bless you, and thank you so much for joining me for Kandit News. I'm Troy Torres. Good night.